In this video, we will take a look at the Python keywords break, continue and pass and how they relate to looping in Python. The break statement is used to exit or terminate a loop prematurely. The continue statement is used to skip the current iteration of a loop and continue with the next iteration. And the pass statement is basically a null operation that does nothing when it is executed. It is generally used as a placeholder where syntactically a statement is required but no action is desired or needed. Let's head over to PyScripter and check them out. I know this course is supposed to have a GIS focus, but it is important that you get these concepts into your head, and that is why I'm keeping them simple by just using numbers. But don't worry, in the next video we are going to tie this section together with some proper workflows. For now, let's take a look at the break with a for loop. We'll use for num in range 10, colon, hit enter. I'm going to use an if statement. If num equals 5, we will call our break statement. If break is not called, we will print num. Okay, before I hit enter again, let's read through this. So for each num is just a variable here. So for each number in range 10, which is going to be 0 through to 9, if our number is 5, if num equals 5 returns true, break. On the first iteration, num is going to be 0. So if num equals 5 will be false. It'll skip over the break and it'll print 0. Num will then become 1. It'll then become 2. It'll then become 3 and 4. And these are still not equal to 5. But then num is 5. And this if statement is true. We then enter the if statement and break. This breaks out of the for loop in its entirety. So we will see that only 0 to 4 gets printed and then the for loop ends. We'll hit enter and that's exactly what we get. Although our range was 0 through to 9, because we had a break statement, when the number hit 5, the for loop ended prematurely. We can also use break with a while loop. We'll set num to equal 1 and while num is less than or equal to 10, if num equals 5, just like the for loop, we will break. Otherwise, we will print num to screen. Now we also have to have an increment here, or we'll enter an infinite loop. So num plus equals 1. I'll hit enter. Okay, we have our variable num, which we've set as 1. So while num is less than or equal to 10, we are going to print num and increment the num by 1 on each iteration. But if num equals 5 at any stage, we are going to break out of the while loop. And we expect the same to be printed as we saw with our for loop, except this time we're starting at 1, so we should see 1, 2, 3 and 4. Once it hit 5, it is going to break out of the while loop. We'll hit enter and we can see our result. Next up is continue, and the continue statement will allow us to skip the current iteration of a loop and continue to the next. We'll start with our for loop. So for num in range 10, if our num modulo 2 equals 0, we will continue. Otherwise, we're going to print num. Okay, so let's think what's happening here. Num modulo 2 is the num divided by 2 and the remainder. So here we are looking for even numbers. So when we hit an even number, we're going to continue. When continue is hit, the code that follows is not executed. It goes from continue back up to the for loop. So we should only see odd numbers printed to screen. Let's run, and we can see that's exactly what we get. When our number did not have a remainder and modulo 2 was equal 0, the continue kicked in and our print statement was not executed for that number. We can also use continue for a while loop. We'll set num equal to 1 while num is less than or equal to 10. If num modulo 2 equals 0, we are going to increment the number by 1. We're going to call our continue statement. If num modulo 2 is not equal to 0, we will be printing our num, and we also need to increment the number by 1 outside of the if statement. We have our variable num set to 1. While num is less than or equal to 10, we are going to print the number and increment the number by 1. So in our first iteration it will be 1, the second will be 2 and 3 and so on. However, if the num value modulo 2 equals 0, so if it is an even number, we will increase our num and we will continue. We will not print to screen. When continue is hit, the code below is not executed. We'll hit enter and we get our odd numbers printed to screen. Lastly, we have pass. Pass is like a placeholder that allows us to execute code without actually doing anything. Start with our for loop. For num in range 10, if num equals 3 or num equals 7, pass, do nothing. Else, print num. So for each num in range 0 to 10, we will get 0 through 9. If the number is equal to 3 or 7, do nothing. If it is not equal to 7 or 3, print the number. So we expect to see 0 through 9 printed to screen with 3 and 7 omitted. We'll hit enter and enter again, and we can see we have 0, 1, 2, 4, so 3 was skipped, 5, 6, no 7, 8 and 9. And we can do similar with the while loop. So set num equal to 1 while num is less than or equal to 10. If num equals 3 or num equals 7, we'll pass, we won't do anything. Else, we will print num, and we also need to increment our num by 1 each time to avoid an infinite loop. We'll hit enter. So while num is less than or equal to 10, it'll be 1 on the first iteration and then incremented each time by 1. The num is equal to 3 or 7, we will pass, we will do nothing. Otherwise, with the else, we will print the num to screen. We will run our code and we can see that 3 and 7 were skipped using pass. Now if we did not have pass in there, the code would not run. This would be a syntax error. You need to have an executable line of code under the if statement. In this video we saw the break, continue and pass statements in action, and we saw how they can be applied when using loops. In our next video we are going to bring this section together. We are going to use the if, elif, else along with for and while loops and our pass, continue and break statements to show the power of these when controlling the flow of your Python script.